What if I told you that somewhere in the depths of Reddit, a community has been crafting stories so compelling, so viscerally satisfying, that they've spawned an entire genre dedicated to one simple premise: humanity is terrifying. Not because we're evil, not because we're monsters, but because when the rest of the galaxy finally meets us, they realize we're something they never expected to encounter. The aliens in these stories don't fear our weapons or our technology. They fear our stubborn refusal to quit when any sane species would surrender. They fear our pack bonding with literally anything that moves. They fear the fact that we turned our most dangerous predators into pets and our most toxic plants into seasoning. Most of all, they fear what happens when you back a human into a corner. These are HFY stories. Humanity. Fuck yeah. And today, I'm diving into the absolute best of them. The stories that will make you proud to be human while simultaneously making you question whether we're the good guys or just the most terrifyingly persistent species in the universe. Now, before we jump into these tales of human excellence, let me set the stage. HFY isn't just science fiction. It's a celebration of everything that makes humanity simultaneously inspiring and absolutely unhinged. These stories take our worst traits, our most bizarre behaviors, and flip them into our greatest strengths. Our aggression becomes protective instinct. Our stubbornness becomes unbreakable determination. Our tendency to adopt anything cute becomes a galaxy-wide reputation for being the species that will literally befriend anything. The first story that defines this genre appeared years ago, buried in a forum thread where someone asked a simple question: what if humans weren't the weakest species in space? What if we were the strong ones? What followed was a flood of creativity that turned every science fiction trope on its head. Picture this scenario. First contact happens, and the aliens are expecting to meet another civilized species. Instead, they encounter humans who've been fighting wars for millennia, who've survived ice ages and plagues, and somehow managed to turn their death world into a garden. The aliens realize with growing horror that their idea of extreme survival training is what humans call Tuesday. One of the most popular recurring themes involves human military doctrine. While alien species fight wars with careful strategy and measured responses, humans show up with something the galaxy has never seen before: total war. Not the kind where you conquer territory or capture resources. The kind where you keep fighting until either you win or there's nothing left to fight with. There's a story where humanity joins a galactic confederation and immediately gets assigned the role of peacekeepers. The aliens think this is perfect. Humans are young, inexperienced. Surely they'll handle minor disputes with appropriate restraint. Then they watch in fascination and terror as human peacekeepers end a centuries-old conflict in 3 months by doing something no other species had ever considered. They made both sides more afraid of the peacekeepers than they were of each other. But it's not just our capacity for violence that makes these stories compelling. It's our capacity for connection. There's an entire subset of HFY dedicated to the concept that humans will pack bond with anything. Literally anything. Other species keep pets for practical purposes. Humans adopt creatures that actively try to kill them and somehow turn them into family members. In one beloved story, a human crew member on a mixed-species vessel starts feeding the ship's pest population, not exterminating them, feeding them. The aliens are horrified until they realize the pests have stopped being destructive and started being protective. The human has somehow domesticated the space equivalent of rats, and now they're part of the crew. This leads to another core theme: human adaptability. While other species evolve specialized traits for their home environments, humans evolved the ability to make any environment their home. Too cold? We'll wear the skin of something that wasn't too cold. Too hot? We'll find shade and dig wells. Toxic atmosphere? We'll hold our breath until we figure out how to make it breathable. The stories love to explore what happens when this adaptability meets alien technology. Other species design their equipment for their specific biology. Humans look at alien tech and ask not whether it's compatible with human biology, but how quickly they can modify either the tech or themselves to make it work. There's a fantastic story about a human engineer who gets stranded on a planet with technology from 12 different alien species, none of it designed to work together. The rescue team arrives expecting to find a corpse and instead finds a thriving settlement where the human has somehow jury-rigged everything into a functioning civilization. The aliens can't understand how it works. The human can't understand why they're confused. This brings us to perhaps the most unsettling aspect of humanity in these stories: our relationship with logic. Other species make decisions based on careful analysis and rational thought. Humans make decisions based on something the aliens can't quantify: spite, stubbornness, and an absolute refusal to accept that something is impossible. In one story, an alien mathematician proves conclusively that faster-than-light travel is impossible. A human physicist reads the proof, nods politely, and then builds a working FTL drive anyway. When asked how this is possible, the human explains that the math says it can't work, but the drive doesn't know math, so it works fine. This casual relationship with impossibility extends to human survival instincts. Other species have logical responses to mortal danger: flee, fight, or surrender. Humans have a fourth option: get unreasonably angry about the situation and refuse to die out of sheer indignation. But perhaps the most chilling aspect of humanity in these stories is our learning curve. Other species take generations to adapt to new threats. Humans watch something kill their friends once and immediately start figuring out how to kill it back. We don't just learn from our mistakes, we weaponize them. There's a story about humanity's first real war with an alien species. The aliens have superior technology, better tactics, and centuries of military experience. They should win easily. Instead, they watch in growing horror as humans absorb their tactics, reverse engineer their technology, and somehow turn their own advantages against them. The war ends not when humanity surrenders, but when the aliens realize they're fighting something that gets stronger every time it loses. This leads to what might be the most important theme in HFY. Humans don't just survive, we thrive in conditions that would break other species. We don't just adapt to hostile environments, we make them better. We don't just overcome challenges, we turn them into opportunities. There's a story that perfectly captures this concept, where humanity encounters a galactic empire that's been stagnant for millennia. They've achieved perfect efficiency, perfect order, perfect peace. Then humans arrive and immediately start asking uncomfortable questions like, "But what if we tried it differently?" And, "Why haven't you explored that sector?" The Empire realizes with dawning terror that they've met a species that treats the impossible as a starting point, rather than an end point. This restless curiosity leads to another beloved trope: humans as the galaxy's accidental revolutionaries. We don't set out to overthrow ancient orders or challenge fundamental assumptions. We just show up, look around, and innocently ask, "Have you tried turning it off and on again?" About systems that have been running unchanged for thousands of years. One particularly memorable story involves a human diplomat who accidentally ends a religious schism that's been tearing apart an entire species for centuries. How? By asking both sides to explain their beliefs, and then pointing out they're basically arguing about the same thing using different words. The aliens are stunned. Humans call this Tuesday. But it's the horror stories that really showcase what makes humanity terrifying. Not the ones where we're the monsters, but the ones where we're the heroes, and that somehow makes us even more frightening. There's a chilling tale about a species that encounters humans during what they assume is our peaceful expansion phase. They're relieved. These humans seem reasonable, diplomatic, even friendly. Then they discover that humans consider this our restraint. What they're seeing isn't humanity at peace, it's humanity actively choosing not to be at war. The revelation that our default state isn't aggression but rather controlled aggression breaks something fundamental in their understanding of the universe. This controlled lethality becomes even more terrifying when combined with human pack bonding. There's a story where alien pirates make the fatal mistake of attacking a human merchant vessel. They're expecting easy prey. Instead, they discover that the merchant crew includes a human who's adopted the ship's cat. The pirates hurt the cat. What follows isn't a battle, it's an education in why you never, ever threaten something a human has decided to protect. The story doesn't focus on the violence, it focuses on the methodical, implacable way, the human dismantles the entire pirate operation. Not in rage, but with the calm efficiency of someone removing a pest. This protective instinct extends beyond individual relationships to entire species. There are multiple stories where humanity encounters a dying civilization and immediately starts asking, "How can we help?" Other species in the galaxy have witnessed countless extinctions with detached scientific interest. Humans show up and treat every dying species like a personal challenge. In one story, humanity discovers a species whose homeworld is dying from a cosmic phenomenon that every other galactic power has written off as unstoppable. The aliens have accepted their fate with dignified resignation. Humans take one look at the situation and say, "Hold our beer." 6 months later, they've moved the entire species to a new homeworld and somehow made the journey profitable enough to fund 3 more rescue operations. But the most unsettling stories are the ones that explore human emotional responses. Other species experience emotions as temporary states that influence behavior. Humans experience emotions as fundamental forces that can reshape reality through sheer determination. Love doesn't just motivate us, it makes us capable of impossible things. Grief doesn't just sadden us, it drives us to ensure no one else has to experience the same loss. There's a haunting story about a human who loses their family to a disease that the galactic medical community has deemed incurable. The aliens expect the human to mourn and move on, as any rational being would. Instead, they watch in fascination and growing unease as the human dedicates their entire existence to finding a cure. Not just for themselves, but for everyone. The story ends with the human succeeding, not through advanced knowledge or superior technology, but through sheer refusal to accept that some problems can't be solved. The aliens realize they've witnessed something that challenges their understanding of reality itself. A species that treats the laws of nature as suggestions rather than absolutes. This brings us to perhaps the most fundamentally disturbing aspect of humanity in these stories: our relationship with death itself. Other species fear death, respect it, plan around it. Humans have somehow turned mortality into a motivating factor. We don't just accept that our time is limited, we use that limitation as fuel for impossible achievements. In one story, a human is diagnosed with a terminal illness that gives them 6 months to live. An alien friend expects them to spend this time in contemplation or saying goodbye. Instead, the human uses their remaining time to solve a mathematical problem that's been stumped the galaxy's greatest minds for centuries. They die at their desk, having spent their final breath on the solution. The alien friend realizes something that chills them to their core. Humans don't just live in spite of death, they live because of it. Our mortality doesn't make us weak. It makes us desperate in the most productive way possible. This desperate productivity extends to how humans approach seemingly impossible challenges. Where other species see insurmountable obstacles, humans see puzzles that just haven't been solved yet. There's a story about a human child who casually solves an engineering problem that's been plaguing alien scientists for generations. When asked how they did it, the child says, "I didn't know it was supposed to be hard." Human history. Made present. These stories aren't just entertaining science fiction. They're holding up a mirror to humanity and asking us to see ourselves through alien eyes. They take our everyday behaviors, our casual cruelties and random kindnesses, our stubborn refusal to accept defeat, and show us how truly bizarre we are. In a universe of rational actors making logical decisions, humans are the chaos agents who succeed through sheer bloody-minded determination and an inexplicable ability to make friends with anything that doesn't immediately try to kill us. And sometimes even then. So there you have it. The best HFY stories aren't just tales of human superiority. They're love letters to everything that makes us beautifully, terrifyingly human. They celebrate our stubbornness, our refusal to quit, our tendency to adopt deadly predators as emotional support animals, and our absolute inability to leave well enough alone. These stories remind us that being human means being the species that looked at flight and said, "Hold my beer," that turned wolves into chihuahuas, and that somehow convinced plants to be more delicious through sheer persistence. We're the species that responds to "it's impossible" with "watch me," and to "you can't save everyone" with "I'll die trying." The galaxy in these stories fears us not because we're evil, but because we're unpredictable in the most productive way possible. We're the species that treats extinction-level events as engineering problems and cosmic horror as Tuesday afternoon entertainment. But here's the thing that makes HFY truly special. These stories don't just make us feel good about being human. They challenge us to live up to the version of humanity that could earn the respect and terror of an entire galaxy. They ask us to be the species that never gives up, never stops caring, and never accepts that some problems can't be solved. Because at the end of the day, that's what makes us human. Not our technology, not our weapons, but our absolute refusal to go gentle into that good night. And honestly, that's pretty damn inspiring.